Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing a brand new review, and today I'm going to be reviewing Kong x Godzilla, The New Empire, however you want to call it, Kong by Godzilla, Kong and Godzilla. I don't know what the term is for X. I feel really old and I'm only 27. But I am here to talk my thoughts on the film, and I have the question to mind, do I make this a spoiler review? Do I keep it spoiler free? I saw the Chinese poster for this the other day, so I had a massive spoiler before I watched the film. So if there is a spoiler review, it will have it in the title, and I'll probably say before I start doing any spoilers. But as always, I do want to hear from people at home, so please do comment your thoughts on Kong, Godzilla, the MonsterVerse, maybe the old Godzilla films, the old Kong films, Kaiju films. I do want to know your thoughts on this. I want to know if you've seen it, if you plan on seeing it, because I'm very curious to know what different people think to this. I'm going to talk in a moment about my thoughts before I watch the film. I didn't go to the press screening. I've gone to the first showing today at my nearest IMAX. I just didn't want to go to the press screening, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. But as always, if you want to find out about new videos, reviews, everything else, go get us on our social medias. Linktree.com/cinemasavvy. That's got links to our Facebook, Twitter, Letterboxd and Instagram. But as I mentioned, I'm here to review the film. And I'm in a really weird state of mind of the MonsterVerse, if I'm being really honest. I really enjoyed the Apple series from the end of last year, start of this year. I know I didn't do a spoiler wrap-up on it, but I very much enjoyed that. And I thought it was a really interesting way to sort of develop the MonsterVerse a little bit more. And it's become a weird franchise where you go back to Gareth Edwards' film from 2014, which I absolutely love. You see what he did. Then you look at the incredible Kong Skull Island film, which, again, I loved it as well. The concept of them joining hands was great. And then you have the second Godzilla, which I despised. I rewatched it at the end of last year, and I still really hate what they did with that. I hate how they wasted so many characters from across the history of Godzilla. It felt like a real rush job. Let's just chuck them all in, make it stick, and then we can do Kong versus Godzilla. And I very much enjoyed King Kong versus Godzilla. It's not aged as well as I thought it would, again on the rewatch last year. So I'll be honest, I was a bit flat heading into this film. That's why I didn't go to the press screening. I didn't think the trailers were particularly good. I think the visuals are awful in the trailers. It's a budget of $135 million. So I had pretty low expectations for this, if I'm really honest. And a lot of friends of the channel, people that have been on the channel, watched it at the press screening the other day. A lot of them really enjoyed it. A lot of them didn't. It's been very mixed, and I thought, okay, understandable. It's not for everyone. It's giant Godzilla versus giant monster. Switch your brain off, don't switch your brain off. There's no right or wrong way to approach films such as that, if I'm really honest. We've just had Godzilla -1, which is, you know, right up there with some of the best Godzilla films, and I'm in the process of watching them all. I think I'm just under halfway through, and I've got till November for my deadline for the 70th anniversary. So yeah, it's a weird one approaching this, I think, especially off the back of Godzilla -1. That's not to say you can commentate for both. They're two very, very different films, and I'm trying to think of anything similar that's done this before. If it's a franchise, I'm sure Marvel probably has, like, having multiple different iterations, or it's like having two different universes going on at the same time. I'm sure Marvel's probably done it somewhere. Or DC, you've got the Batman and what was left of the DCEU. It's really hard to compare, but it can affect how you view the other one. So I had almost no expectations for this. I'm not going to lie, I've just got home. I absolutely loved it. I had the time of my life. It was ridiculous. Yes, switch your brain off. And I don't like saying that too often. I don't like the concept that, oh, you can only enjoy it if you switch your brain off. It's not that it was turned on, but in the opening 5 minutes, you kind of know what you're in for with this. There's a giant monkey. There's fighting other giant creatures in the Hollow Earth, aka the Upside Down, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to do with it. You know what you're in for. And I think you're in or you're out. And it's a bit like the Fast and Furious films for me. I'm in on those. I'm all in on those. I'm going to watch all of them. They've been a key part of growing up for some reason. And what's jumping to mind of this film, and this sounds very snobbish because I'm only going through them, I've not finished it, but it felt like a 60s Godzilla film. It felt like the Apologies on the Butchered pronunciation, the Showa era of films. That you've got all these insane different kaiju, these personas coming together and just having a big scrap. And because I'm going through them in the background, I don't know if that subsequently enhanced my experience watching this today, because I was noticing more things that I hadn't from other ones. The spoiler alert might come a little bit later. But I was really enjoying what I was watching, and it felt like a modern take on those 60s ones that we haven't really had with American cinema. Now, I mentioned I've rewatched the MonsterVerse films at the end of last year, and King Kong vs. Godzilla didn't land as well for me. There's certainly some stuff I loved in there, like the Mechagodzilla. It actually grossed an insane amount at the box office, given the COVID multiple release as well. People don't talk about it enough. It did enough to cement doing a sequel. And I was kind of curious, like, okay, why is Kong wearing like an Infinity Gauntlet type thing from the trailers? The pair of them running looked really weird, and there was all the scale stuff, and I do have issues with those sometimes, where it's, when you go back to Kong Skull Island, you go back to Godzilla, it's very much the world is built of scale. It's look at the size of these creatures compared to us, look at how they're shot, look at how we're going to follow certain personas. But at this point in time, 10 years later, the world within whatever we want to call this unit, the MonsterVerse, they are adapted to Kaiju in the same way in the Transformer film. Which you go back to Transformers 2. Transformers just a part of their culture, it's a part of their world. You could get yeeted at any point off the map, you could have your house blown up, there's jokes about Kaiju insurance and stuff like that, Titan insurance I think they call it in this. So I can forgive all the world stuff, but it's so much the film takes place in the Hollow Earth that you sort of lose a sense of scale, and it just becomes almost a Planet of the Apes type film. And that's not really a criticism per se. It's when we're spending time with these CGI creatures such as this, you don't need to have scale, you don't need the benefit of having that. So it felt like the audience is in a place now where they can accept what's going to happen, and they should be able to assume what is going on, what is taking place, what is involved. And it's a very simplistic story, all things being said. I'm going to talk some about the human cast, because I couldn't take my eyes off Dan Stevens watching this. And I saw The Guest for the first time last year. I think Dan Stevens is the British Ryan Gosling. I don't know if people have said this before, I don't know if this is a thing. You've seen him in interviews, that classic interview on British TV about beating men off. You see him approaching a role such as this. He's in a MonsterVerse film in a Hawaiian shirt, sunglasses. He just reeks sort of ridiculous but coolness, not taking it seriously at the same time, and I just felt like this was a Ryan Gosling-esque performance. And I was looking in my head at Dan Stevens and thinking, have him and Ryan Gosling done a film together? Do we need a film with them? Does Hollywood need to cast them together? I think they do. And I just sat there worrying, and maybe this is a criticism of the film, it shouldn't be, but I was like, what if we had a Zoolander-esque comedy blended in with something like The Prestige? And it's just Dan Stevens and Ryan Gosling one-upping each other for 2 hours. I would watch it. It'd be entertaining. It'd be incredible. Someone needs to make it happen if it hasn't already. But going back to Godzilla, though, I thought he was a great addition. And the big criticism of our MonsterVerse films has always been the human characters. We don't like spending time with them. Obviously, you'll bring Godzilla -1 as the incredible polar opposite to this. It's an incredible human story centered around the antagonist, Godzilla. And the characters in that are the best we have had from the Godzilla films I've been watching, from the MonsterVerse, from the American films as well. There is nothing that's compared to that, and it's really tricky not to think of it. But this time round, I can not forgive it, but I can think it's about King Kong and Godzilla. It knows what it's about. It's not trying to be something else. It's not trying to do the drama, develop too much. And I think this is where the independent person's mind will determine if they like the film or not. I can let it go. Like I said, like Fast and Furious, I can let it go. I know what it is. It's a blockbuster film. I just want to watch them fight each other, and I kind of enjoyed that. And I've been turning my nose at that in the last few months, and this reminded me of what I've missed. And in terms of that, going into some of the specifics, even the fighting itself, I mean, Godzilla German suplexes King Kong in this film. Take a moment. If you don't know what a German suplex is, that's on you. But I watched a film where Godzilla German suplex King Kong. If that isn't one of the most impressive feats in modern cinema, I really don't know what is. It was an insane moment. It was a ridiculous moment, and that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm going to enjoy, and that is what has reminded me of those older Godzilla films. Yes, of course, they were the humans in the costumes and whatnot, but even when they're scrapping, it was entertaining. It's ridiculous, and it's nice to see that in 2024. And then it sort of frustrates me that I then go back to the Godzilla King of the Monsters, I think the second one, which I absolutely hate, which wasted, well, maybe not wasted King Ghidorah, it wasted Mothra, it wasted Rodan. And it was a really frustrating watch. They just chucked things in there. And now the spoiler taste coming in. Spoilers, so if you haven't watched it, go watch the film now. But the inclusion of Mothra in this, superb. I absolutely loved what they did as well, bringing in the human characters that have been with us from Kong vs. Godzilla. There's no Millie Bobby Brown, which was great. Not in a horrible way, but that story was done. It didn't need to be in the last one. I liked that it was more fine-tuned, probably budget reasons as well, but to bring in the origins of Mothra, if you're not familiar with the sort of the two angels and whatnot, they do a more modern take and a MonsterVerse take on that, which I really enjoyed. And it's like they pretended Mothra didn't exist in that last film, which is great, because maybe that means we can get some other villains down the line. I know there's no credit scene, but it was moments like that where I just was really enjoying myself, and that's what you want from the cinema, don't you? It's what you want from a film such as this. I'm not going to watch King Kong versus Godzilla to see, an interesting take on a post-war world or stuff such as that. It just can't happen in a film such as this. So, yeah, it's a weird review. I watched it at IMAX, so obviously it was loud, the screen was massive. The experience IMAX worked, it makes utilisation of the IMAX screen. That's what you want. It's really tricky that June is out as well, that June is getting cinema screens on IMAX, which is great at the same time as this. I do think very quickly they'll go back to June having more screens. I know it's Warner Brothers, it's easier to switch the contracts around, but I don't think this film's going to be a massive hit. I think it's just very much that post-COVID audience. The film's like the best marketing campaigns, but there's a lot of enjoyable stuff in here. There's great kaiju fighting. There's some interesting stuff with some human characters. There's Dan Stevens, and he is that sort of extra buzz on the film. And I've forgotten the actor's name, but he was in Andor. He was in The Batman. He pops up for a bit, and I'm like, oh my word. Is it Trevor from EastEnders who got killed with the iron? British people know what I'm talking about, but yes, I had a ball of a time. And am I recommending this for people to watch? It's a tricky one. If you're in on the MonsterVerse, go ahead, go watch it. If you're in on, you just want a chilled out action film for a few hours, maybe go ahead and go watch it. It's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's certainly not terrible. It's not bad. I think it's like above average, below good, but it's entertaining, and that's what I want. And as we're in the 70th year of Godzilla, the anniversary year, it is kind of nice to get another film at the cinema, and it's not the worst one. It's not the worst American one. So, yes, there is hopefully a bit more of a future for Godzilla films. I don't know what happens with the MonsterVerse now. I'd really like a second season of the Apple Show. It's a really interesting series, so I'm going to recommend that at the same time as this film. But I just had a blast there. I thought I wouldn't. Maybe low expectations really did help. But again, Godzilla, German suplexed King Kong, and that is an image that will never leave mine. And Godzilla's shredded. I'm in spoilers now. Godzilla got fucking shredded in this. I don't understand. Is it because WrestleMania's next week? I'm looking, I don't know, but Godzilla was ripped, and people criticised that he was quite fat in 2014. Yeah, man, the pink Godzilla is, I don't know what you'd call it, the remontada, something like that. It's insane. It's great. I enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. So that's going to round out this review. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.